Hey, Patrick, how you doing, bud?
Not too bad at all, buddy. How are you getting on?
Well, I figured since we were watching Rudyard from What If All This, and he was talking about rebellion and all those kinds of things, we would get Mr. Joel Kotkin on Dad Saves America to give us maybe a more well-metered discussion about it.
Breakdown.
Yeah.
I think it breaks it down very well actually for people. Makes it very easy to understand where rebellions come from.
Yeah, what the function is, how that happens, and what class it normally is spearheaded from, but then the rest of society gets caught up in it. So let Mr. Kotkin get cooking.
The most dangerous group of any society is overeducated, underpaid people. They are the most dangerous.
Dig into that for a minute. What do you mean by that?
Okay, like even in the Tsarist Russia, we had this, which was, you have people who went to school, got a discipline of some sort, and had been told by their parents and by their teachers and by their guidance counselor, you get that master's in,
classics.
Well, classics would be useful, but in marketing or gender or it could be a lot of different things.
Right. If you're reading the classics, then you're learning how to manipulate language, and it's teaching you critical thinking skills. But a lot of these disciplines are, I tell you what to think, and then you have to model everything on that, right? Plus you were lied to by your parents and your social groups that if you do these things, you'll be successful. Turns out, if you don't put in more effort than being told what to think and using that as a framework, then you're ineffective in society. When you're ineffective in society, you start to resent. That's just how that works, right?
Yeah, and the sad things I see that with quite a lot of young people go through the motions all the way through college and then end up working in the likes of McDonald's, somewhere like that. And it's very kind of disheartening. And they usually become very either very left wing or very right wing very quickly.
You were discussing with me, right? You were discussing with me before about you have students that were third year students in American universities, but couldn't even hack it in the first section of their university schooling in Ireland, right?
Yeah, they came in, they transferred over in third year, so they will go over to our third year, which will be ordinary level up to honors degree,
right?
And I just felt sorry for them because they had no basic understanding of mathematics. Or I was studying business at the time, and they were really struggling with basic math skills. And I said to them afterwards, I said, one of them was after 3 years, another one was after 4 years of college at this stage, after spending a lot of money. And I was going, you should really be at a better standard than this.
You shouldn't be revisiting basics in third and fourth year. You should have all of those steps, right?
Yeah. And we were classified as leaving certain level of mathematics even.
The one of the best books I've read on it was a book by Richard Carey where he discusses how the ancient Greeks did their schooling, right? So you'd have rhetoric and philosophy, and then you do like your master's degree in rhetoric and then your doctorate equivalent in philosophy, or the other way around, right? So ways to think, ways to manipulate concepts and all these kinds of things. And as we've gotten away from those times, thousands of years now, a couple of them, our situation has become, our higher houses of education they're not pure houses of critical thought and those kinds of things. They're indoctrination tools for radicalized people.
Also, they became, and especially in the United States, I see it's become more of a business. Because the way they look at it is, if I fail the young man in first year of college, he's not going to pay more money to go for a second year or a third year or a fourth year. So they're kind of pushing or guiding people through this factory.
Right. That has access it has access to tax money as well, right? So you get more money for them if they're there. If you fail them out, then you can't get the financial reward. And on top of that, if I say I graduate X amount of percent, say 92%, right? That means that my graduation rate is higher, but it doesn't mean they've actually learned anything. It just means I've pushed them through the paper mill, right? And they get that sheepskin on their wall. But it does, at this point, what does it really mean? If it's not in a STEM field, it looks as if it's all an ideological framework, right?
And the sad thing is dumbing down the educational system if it's a business. Like it's sad. It's not fair on the young people, especially when they're being saddled with so much debt after they graduate with pretty useless degrees or useless skill set in some cases.
I've done a review recently of some humanities courses that are currently in the lowest levels of our collegiate education. And I get strange things like, you need to discuss some work that's related to diversity, mental health, or activism, right? Which is functionally saying the same thing, right? You need to research a thing that is just this one topic, regardless of the semantic look of the word. The semantic value of those words is functionally the same, right? So I have to frame a paper guided by your hand that says I need to very encouraged to use this one overarching scope of a method of thought that isn't critical thinking, but framework of thought that is ill-served to lead to critical thinking, right? And that's what he's talking about. We get these people who are guided down this path, right? You've played games before. You've heard of the expression, the game is on tracks, right? You can only go X, Y, and Z place, right? It's not a big sandbox of places you can go and experience and all this stuff, but you have to follow the storyline checkbox by checkbox, right? That's what colleges become. Checkbox by checkbox, you will learn these things, and it will cause radical issues and problems, right? Because that's the framework. They become activists, and it's not by accident. It's not a bug. It's a feature. It's by design. Right?
Yes, because as I keep saying, is the more people you push through the paper mills, the more you get paid at the end of the day. And the fact that they keep telling these young people that they need, in order to get to this any field, you need a master's now. And you're looking at kind of going, what are you on about? You don't need a master's.
Well, that's so statistically before the mid 90s, you had a bachelor's, you made X amount of money, because it showed a body of work. I'll work for 4 years. But a master's degree was someone who was very good at a broad-sized thing, right? Whatever it was, and they would make more money. But then the PhDs could either make more money or less money, depending upon how niche their function was, right?
Yes.
So if you go into research, you'd work at the university, you get your PhD and continue, say, anthropology or something. But it's so niche, you're not going to make a lot of money at it. You're going to have to put in grants to the government to get your stuff done, But the guys and gals with the master's degrees were making really good money because the broad level of education, the ability to critically think through processes and solve problems. These kids aren't taught how to solve problems. They're taught, I'm going to hand you things.
Oh, no.
And they get out in the real world and they're like, nobody's handing me anything, right? It's like these school boards we have in the United States, which manage a lot of money that comes from taxpayers. And the boards decide who gets the money. They decide the teacher's salaries, right? So the board members get paid first and the teachers get paid last, along with the janitors and the aides and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, so, the people who actually do the groundwork,
right?
Get paid at least,
right? They're at the sharp end of the spear, and they're in the trenches doing the work with the kids, and then the lofty board members, right? Your SPED directors and your public relations directors and all these people who should not be getting paid quite that much money. I like your system better, where you don't make money on that school board. You do it because your love of education for children.
Yes.
Right? Not I'm going to get paid X amount of dollars to do this. It should be you have a job where you're actually contributing to society, and then you also do this to contribute to the youth.
Yes.
It's just a better model.
Because I think it's a way better model, because that way there's no bias, is the best word, or ass covering as well as.
Well, no, it's for the love of the game. It's for the love of the game. Yeah. And again, all those systems have been super feminized, like insanely feminized. But that's for another episode, because that's a rant. I don't have time for that. So let's get back to this fella.
And you're entitled to a job which will allow you to afford to live in New York City or San Francisco.
Those are cultural hubs. It's super important to be in those high-end places because it's a show of social status, right?
Yes.
Right. So if I'm not in Dublin or Belfast, then what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like city Cork, right? If I'm
it's
not
kind of like a little gold star to boast to the family.
Right. If you're out in the middle of County Mayo or the Midlands or Donegal, like you're just some country boy, right? You know what I'm saying?
Well, you have to remember too, we're kind of a smaller country, so it's not as much of a hit to your reputation as it would be in, say, the United States. A young man or woman from Kansas is suddenly living in the big city of New York. It's
Wichita, Kansas, or Des Moines, Iowa. Yeah. Pick a bad spot in the Midwest, a flyover state, right?
Yeah. So it's you know, it's a big thing for the family to boast about on Thanksgiving, saying, "Oh, little Johnny and Mary are studying whatever in New York and they're
Right.
living their best life."
Right.
You know,
and they're winning at the game of life. Good luck. Right?
yes, yeah,
It didn't work. So what you get is you get this resentment. So you've had, if you look at rebellions throughout history, it's largely this class that sparks them. You know, it's generally not the peasantry and the, you know, even the working class.
Yeah, the peasantry and the working class are just digging in the ground trying to make dollars for their family, right?
Yes.
They're trying to get the euros together to, you know, make sure the kids are eating. They don't have time for these luxury beliefs. They just don't.
no,
Yeah.
they don't.
You got to go out in the field and pull that potato out of the ground so you can eat it, right?
Yeah, you have to make rent for the kids and the family
Yeah.
and the whole nine. Yeah,
You got to make your bones and then make your
you
money.
you don't have time to sit around and ponder the meaning of the universe.
Right. Let me go ahead and pontificate upon my belly button. I've got the time to do it. Here we go.
Where did that come from?
You look at the people around.
Smart kid words. I learned some smart kid words. I bought them at the flea market this weekend. So I was like, I got to use pontificate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And belly button was just the weirdest thing I could think of to pontificate upon. So here we go.
Yeah.
And there were, most of those people were well educated. Lenin was from quasi, like sort of the bottom part of the aristocracy. So, you know, and high up in the Russian administration. The French Revolution filled with underemployed lawyers.
Underemployed lawyers, really?
Yes. Yeah. A lot of that was a big part of the French Revolution at the time.
Well, we were watching What If Altist, and he was talking about you could tell block by block where they were getting together for the revolution, what their thought pattern was, literally based on the cafes that they were eating at. I thought that was really interesting.
Yes, actually, it's I watched some great documentaries over the years about the French Revolution, and it was actually quite interesting. They were talking about the peasant, how they would free the peasantry from the upper class while they were sitting inside in high-end bars and restaurants.
Yeah.
It was actually quite interesting. Yeah.
Hypocrites, you're a hypocrite. All right, here we go.
Well, in fairness, when they took it over, they looked after. Actually, no. When they took it, what did they say long ago? Meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
Right, or the guillotine. Meet the new boss or meet the guillotine. I mean, you pick one, right?
Well, the guillotine kind of kept the populace down for a while. Right?
Oh yeah. Well, you know, you
got up and cheered and watched the royal family lose their heads and so on, and everyone was happy until they realized, wait a minute, these new guys are just as bad as the old guys.
Right. Keep your head about you, right?
Yeah.
There we go.
You know, so this is a class. They're articulate, they're capable of organization, and they're resentful. They feel, in some cases, the resentment is okay, but they feel that the society doesn't recognize their value, and that's Mamdani's base. People who've gone through the woke colleges.
So Mamdani is the socialist who's running for governor of New York City right now. So
he's actually, as I'm just looking at the news right now, it looks like he's well on his way to winning that.
Oh yeah, it's looking pretty good.
Well,
there's a Republican that's, I believe, in second place, a nice lady, but I don't think she has a chance.
She had a snowball chance, not a snowball.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Have all the luxury beliefs, very often are from upper middle class families, make not enough money to live decently in New York. And so these kids are going to have to make a choice. Do I want to have, make a living, buy a house, have a family, progress as an adult, or do I stay in New York City and San Francisco as essentially the ward of the state?
All right. The thing that I'm immediately thinking about is there's an article by Friedrich Hayek called "The Intellectuals in Socialism."
Right.
And he points, he's asking the question, like, why is this intellectual class so inclined towards essentially a totalitarian social planner
and by the
ideology?
Way, also in Germany, which I can get into that quite a bit of detail.
But in some cases, in my reading of Hayek, who's probably the thinker I've read the most consistently, some of his framing around Germany was also to try to get at these ideas in an acceptable way.
Right.
Like even like The Road to Serfdom's focused on the Nazis, but it's really about the Soviets.
Right. And the big one with that is the Frankfurt School, which functionally
Mm.
shoved itself into our educational system in the United States,
Yeah.
which functionally caused us to have a socially Marxist system by about 1992.
Yes.
And we watched New Discourses with James Lindsay. He discusses this at length, why this is the case, and about how the intellectuals will call something racist until you hand them the ability to control it because they're well spoken. They're like, well, this is obviously a bad thing for society. So to keep you safe, so you don't experiencing anything objectionable, we're going to water down the language, change the semantic value of the words, and then we're going to take control of the thing because you've handed it to us, because obviously we deserve to be in charge.
Yeah, because we are smart enough to be in charge, not you.
Right.
It's usually the way it works.
Yes.
And it's actually quite interesting when we're doing that. And it's sad to see how much our educational system's gone away from education more to rhetoric.
Yes.
Going to pushing a cause, where what I think of colleges is you're there to educate the next generation into whatever job they're going into.
Right. And the Greek scholars had rhetoric as well, but rhetoric was a form of debate. It wasn't, it had a different meaning way back in the day. It was a method of debate, not, and not a way to attempt to exert control, but a way to try and get at concepts. Like, I will give you all your premises and then we'll argue from that point, right?
Yes.
That way we've set something up to argue about, right? As opposed to, I deny your premises. Well, let's accept your premises and then we'll work on it from there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So and that is a form of critical thinking. Like, okay, we're going to set this problem up, then we're going to set up syllogistic reasoning as to why it is or isn't true, coming up with conclusions that are both true and correct based on the premises, right?
Yes.
So an argumentative style to attempt to tease out ideas and concepts and have a marketplace of ideas that's functional. As I tell you what to think, and you use that framework on everything, where everything becomes a power struggle. And if everything is a power struggle, then you get to other people, and they get to be wrong because they don't believe as you believe. And that's where these things end up functionally.
Yeah.
So here we go.
He makes a very similar argument. He's like, you have an intellectual class that believes they're entitled to be treated like royalty, even though they don't produce very much value for others,
right?
Which is why they don't make much money,
right?
Like, say, all of academia, no offense.
Yeah, I'm not an academic.
And
at least by training.
And so you're a professor, you resent all these like brutish businessmen that make more money than you, and you get wrapped up in utopian ideas, and next thing you know, you're advocating for the destruction of the society like every time. And I didn't really realize how much that pattern sort of tracks back through history.
And
so talk to me about that pattern through history. That seems to be your bailiwick more than mine, Patrick.
But he's actually about to go into it. But the funny, he is actually right, is a lot of it starts with the anger. And same anger you see all through history, as he keeps pointing out.
Right. Those who don't produce value believe their value to be higher, and then it starts to generate resentment.
They believe they should be gods among men. But in reality, they're flipping burgers at McDonald's. And that produces certain kind of resentment against the system that
or they're functionally a ward of the state because they work for an education system that gets their money from the taxpayers. Then they're sheltered with tenure, and once they're sheltered with tenure, they can say wild stuff. And you can check their doctoral theses, right? Their doctoral theses are barely ever footnoted in anybody else's stuff ever. It means that you haven't contributed intellectually at all, and we're still giving you the accolades as if you deserve your tenure, which is not the case.
Yeah, and that's the sad thing about it, is the more we see of these angry protesters or angry people on either side of the aisle, it's usually young people who are very, very angry at the system that they feel has kept them down. And all through history, when we have this level of animosity, us versus them, it always ends in a revolution of some sort or some form of violent uprising of some sort.
Well, the kids are right.
And I think
the kids are right.
Yeah. And I think this time, I was predicting the next 5 to 10 years, that probably not tomorrow, it'll take 5 or 10 years, that there will be a major upheaval of some sort somewhere. You can see the recipe for it all around the world. People are angry. People are just very angry at the system.
So I think I can look back to two significant points in the last 50, 60 years. So in 1971, Richard Milhous Nixon took us off the gold standard, which meant that, yeah, not a good thing, right? So that means that none of our money was backed by anything. So it means that your labor is functionally an IOU problem, right?
Yeah, I think that I remember studying that in economics. He took you off the gold standard because you were producing more physical currency than the gold could physically act.
Right.
If that makes sense for people.
Right. So,
by the way, that's breaking it down Barney style for people.
For sure.
I know everyone looks back and says, "Oh, they should never have gone off the gold standard." America had no choice at the time, because you were having more people who needed more currency in their pockets.
Right, and
there just wasn't enough gold in the reserve to cover all the paper money that everybody wanted.
And there was
and I understand Nixon had no choice. It was either that or he had actually no choice. There was
right. But the thing was,
by the way, America was one of the last countries to go off the gold standard, believe it or not.
Right, for sure. And
and he had no choice.
Right, he was pretty much stuck. So what happens then is that as opposed to having our money be valuta, like valuable based on you can exchange at $110 per ounce roughly for gold, to the American petrodollar, forcing the rest of the world to switch money to the US dollar to purchase the oil. And there's a big deal with that recently where I believe Saudi Arabia accepted yuan from China as payment for crude oil, which is going to upset the apple cart for sure. But if you look at it, go ahead.
It's been on the rise for a long time that the OPEC member countries have been shopping around, because not to have anything against the US dollar, they just want to have more currencies backing as well. They're hedging their bets, as you could say.
Right. So that leads to other issues. But if you look at when the kids say they're screwed, it's kind of true. Because in 1985, there was approximately $2.78 trillion in play in the United States. The lower 90% of the economy controlled 65% of the money. Which meant that $30,000 in 1985 gets you 2 cars, 2 kids, a garage to put them in, a nice 4-bedroom house, and 5 or 6K in the bank at the end of the year, take a couple vacations, and you still had some money left over.
Yeah, there was plenty of money circulating in your economy at that time.
Right.
So, people, as you were saying, people would go on holidays, they would go to whatever part of America.
For sure. Yeah.
Back when it was circulated around.
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
Back when Braniff Airlines was a thing and the money appropriately accelerated as opposed to getting caught up. Right? Yeah. Old Braniff. Woo.
Oh, wow.
So now we have like $22.8 trillion in play, but the lower 90% is only in control of 35% of that money. Right?
Yeah.
Which means that today in the United States, to have the equivalent of what my dad had in 1985, I would have to make $250,000 a year. Right?
Yes.
And that means that these kids are not going to be able to buy houses. They're just not, unless they get into
impossible.
Yeah, they're going to have to get into multiple poly relationships because 2 people aren't going to be able to do it. 2 incomes is not enough. Without kids, you can do it, but with kids, it is hideously expensive and difficult to do.
I've seen so many stories, even in Ireland at the moment, of kids. Pretty much, when I say kids now, under 30s, with pretty good jobs in Dublin, engineers, doctors, teachers, so on. Really good paying jobs, not bad at all. And they've said it straight up to my face: they'll never ever get on the property ladder in Dublin. Never.
No, there's no way.
Or even they said the closest they could get onto the property ladder is if you're from Dublin. You understand what I'm supposed to say? If they go to like some Letterkenny up to Donegal, basically they're looking at least 60 miles plus outside the Dublin area before they'll even have a sniff of a property that they could possibly afford.
Right. They have the same issue here in California, and Texas is a pretty good example of this too, right? So during COVID, a ton of Californians moved to Austin, Texas, and they had remote jobs, and they were making $300,000, $400,000 a year, right? Even 150 to 200K, and they were buying property in Austin, Texas. You have to get 80 to 90 miles away out to like Colleen and like San Antonio And then San Antonio has its own issues, like because it's a more prosperous area now. So you have to go way outside the bubble, right?
Yeah.
Now, all that extra money in there did not meet out well with the local economy at all. It just didn't.
No,
Right.
it threw everything off kilter, as they say. Well,
And the
yeah.
property values went through the roof. And yeah, it's just insane. All right. We've gone far afield. Let's get back to Mr. Kotkin.
Has also implications like Frederick Spotts did a very good book called Hitler and the Power of the Aesthetic. And what Spotts did is he showed how strong Hitler's support was at the university level, in the architecture community, in the arts community, in the film community. One big advantage, get rid of all the gays and Jews. That's going to open up a lot of positions. You know, you think about it today, if you're an academic and, you know, no Zionists need apply, well, you know what, I don't think it's bragging to say a lot of people as Zionists are really smart and have a lot of talent. But you get rid of them. A lot of gay people have a lot of talent and are very creative. If you got rid of them,
They're great at gentrifying cities, let me tell you.
yes,
So there's an interesting aspect to this, right?
Mm.
So generally speaking, gay men aren't going to be raising children, right? So what happens is they have a couple of functions. One of them is they're like everybody's favorite uncle, party time, good time. But the thing is they're not going to leave their profession to raise children, which means that their acumen at their function is going to, generally speaking, be higher than those who took time off to distract, in quotes, distract themselves by raising children, right?
Exactly. Family time and so on.
Yeah, that distraction isn't there. They're just focused on fun, lots of fun. You want a great party?
Yeah.
Invite your gay friends. It will be an amazing party. But when they're working, they are absolutely focused on it.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
They're hyper focused on their jobs. And I work with a lot of gay individuals, and I have to say one thing, they are brilliant at their jobs. I mean, when they clock in at 9 o'clock, they're fully clocked in.
Right. Proficient, efficient, friendly, congenial, functional for the most part. Sometimes a little catty. It's fine, right? But a lot of times,
they can get very catty.
But a lot of the times, the reason they're catty is because they know their shit. They are on it, right? And if you disrespect their professional acumen, they'll tell you, right?
Oh yeah.
And the other thing is,
they don't mince their words. That's what they're gonna say.
If you look at IQ charts, he's right. The Zionist Jews, functionally, for IQ tests, and this is meted out, I'm not just saying wild stuff, it's true, their IQ is baseline a little bit higher, right? And because of that, like he says, if you just kick them out of academia and all these other places, those spots are going to open up, but they'll probably open up to someone who isn't quite as efficient or effective as the person they've kicked out, right? So that's just...
And he's right, and in the 1930s, that's what Hitler did.
Right, so he captured Germany culturally, economically, and then in all ways that you could lend appropriate propaganda, he had everything, right?
Oh, he had it all locked down. And the way he did it was actually what he just said there. He got rid of all the people who are apparently holding all the big paying jobs.
Okay.
Which cheered up an awful lot of his base at the time. You know, as he said, that academics were brilliant. So suddenly all these jobs are suddenly opening up to them. You know, their standard of living go up. Hitler's a great guy, so on, so forth. They did a lot of it in Soviet. You could think of any rebellion at any time, and this is usually the same playbook. You find a group to marginalize and blame all your troubles on them. Like in the French Revolution was the royalty and so on. You find a group, you marginalize them, make them other,
right?
And you replace them with your buddies.
And then once you other them, then you can do whatever you want to do with them. And regardless of the populace of Germany,
all know how that works out.
Right. And regardless of the populace of Germany thinking that fellow was a great dude, he did what he was doing to push an economic ideology. And understand, his first treaty that he made was with the Catholic Church. That was his first treaty.
Oh, yeah, because you have to remember, Germany at the time was really deeply Catholic country. And it was a very clever move by the Crown Trust later on, the nationalist government at the time, Hitler, being led by Hitler, that they get the rest of the population of Germany, not just academics, but
everybody on board,
Yeah, get everyone on board, especially the normal working class individuals.
Right. Well, then it wasn't the and the Jews weren't the first ones to go down. It was the Roma. The
The
gypsies
Roma,
were,
yeah,
yeah, they,
yeah, the
yeah,
gypsies were, yeah, the gypsies kind of went around, were always a plague on Western Europe at the time.
right. It was
And
get the dirty Roma out of here. And then now we need a
yeah,
bigger group to other. And again,
yeah,
you have a more pure society in quotes by getting rid of
yeah,
those who are gay or obviously gay out of the way. And then you
yeah.
get the Jews out, and then you have this open vacuum of space, right? Works kind of like the
And then you
Black
can,
Plague, right? Remember the Black Plague, where a lot of people
yes,
died, and the only way for things to work out functionally is to end up with a meritocracy because they just fell into positions where they could perform functions and do well. And then it didn't matter if you were poor, peasant, or if you were royalty. If you could do the job, you did the job. There weren't enough
you did the job,
bodies,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, all right, far afield again. Let's get back to it.
For sure. So I think that there's a I think that Hayek was onto something, and I think it shows in almost all the sociology of the Soviet Union and today in China, where it's become again very hierarchical, very sort of like the old Confucian system with a big exam.
Well, and even Mao's Guard, right? I mean, Mao's Guard were young people, and I don't know this for a fact, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were the young, sort of college-educated crowd.
They were well.
But maybe that's a little more complex there.
That's probably more modern. Modern. At that point, there were not as many people in college, but you had a generation that was coming up, a very big generation, because it was before their baby bust. Big generation coming up. I've interviewed former Red Guards, so I've sort of seen it firsthand. You know, there was this generation come up. They were very numerous, and there was a group of people who had been in positions of influence at least since the revolution. So the idea was get rid of those people. This is exactly what happened with Stalin in the Great Purges. There was
Yep.
all these young people who had been brought up under the Soviet system, but there were all these old Bolsheviks who were in control of everything. And Stalin said, "We'll get rid of them, and then you'll get a good job."
Yeah, Mao's Great
Yeah.
Leap Forward looks exactly like that. He modeled it after
Yeah,
the
that's
Bolshevik
right.
Resolution,
But
for sure.
you have to remember that that's the playbook of every change of government. There's no such thing as a bloodless revolution, which is pretty much impossible.
Right.
If you look at what's going on right now, you'll see a lot of it being mirrored across the world. You'll have
Yeah, but people aren't just going to give up their
glorious
power.
leaders.
Yeah, they're not just going to, if they have the power,
But-
then
but-
you're
but-
going to have to
but-
wrest it
but-
from them somehow.
Yes, and the funny thing is, most of these revolutions is people don't see the writing on the wall until it's too late. They're kind of going, well, we didn't know that such and such a leader would do this in the
Oh,
end.
right, like in the United States,
but
we
yeah,
didn't know there was a
when you-
civil war, right? We didn't know there was a civil
Yeah.
war until like 3 battles ago. And like, oh no, we're in
Exactly.
the middle of it. Like it's happening now.
If you look at the previous century, say, look at the French, looking at the Russian Revolution and Germany and so on, is they're shocked that they put in a strongman, prompts them all these things, will get rid of whatever's causing ill in society. And before they know it, there's troops marching up and down the street, and he's in charge, and there's nothing they can do.
Pretty much.
It's a very slow, gradual process when people give up their rights.
Yeah.
And people should be really careful when there's a charismatic leader promising you the sun, moon, and stars.
Where
and he's
do we
also
have those
blaming-
leaders at right now, I wonder? Oh,
and blaming everything on a small percentage of society's ills on
right.
everything.
Right.
You know, we don't have to look too far, as they say, when we think of some of those leaders.
Facts. Here we go.
Now, I do think that we're sort of moving into an era where there are sort of two different Americas of sort, and it's not ideology that's the main factor. There's a part of America where people say, I have to live in one of these few cities. I want to be in a place where, all the sort of woke ideas are still, fairly strong. I don't
Why would you want that?
well, because if I'm, this is particularly true, unfortunately.
Because that's where they perceive the culture to be, and that's where they perceive
Yeah.
the cutting edge of all of society.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
True
if
or
you're
not?
if you're a young man or woman living in Kansas and you're into tech, where do you want to live?
Silicon Valley. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or
So
Austin.
on.
Yeah. That's where
Yeah.
it's at. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where you're going to. That's where you're going to gravitate to. That's just the way the world is.
Yeah. You go where the thing is done if you want to do that thing for sure. Right.
Yes, exactly.
Fortunately, with women, they want to live in this environment, without, essentially with very little male interference. Let's put it that way. There
Or very, very little testosterone, let's say.
That's for sure. And you're in a culture that's built around not about families and probably not about married people. I mean,
Yeah, it's a super feminized version where nobody gets offended, and as opposed to solving problems, we reduce conflict. And the more you just keep sitting on the reduction of conflict, that conflict has to come out. It's going to come out.
Yeah,
there isn't a choice.
But yeah, and the sad thing is, it breeds a generation of very weak and easily led individuals.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of cognitive dissonance with that too, right? So you believe things that are at odds with each other, like they're mutually exclusive. It makes it so your ability to critically think is severely deteriorated. And then when you're presented with difficult concepts, you just break toward, well, what makes me feel better, not what is better or what's more optimized, right? It's a complete
or what's
breakdown.
logical.
Right. What is the logical conclusion? How do I set up a syllogistic argument that shows me a true and correct conclusion from my premises? They lack that concept. Therefore, it's all about the feelings, which is functionally a more feminized society. I'm not hating on women, but a feminized society isn't necessarily safe for that society.
Yes,
right?
but the problem is when you have a feminized society like this, it makes young men, in particular, very angry and resentful.
Right. What if Altists
Which
talks
leads
about
to
that
other
a lot?
problems.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Which leads
For
to
sure.
other massive social issues as well. Then,
well, and we're watching Alexander Grace with the rule changing. If you tell me what the rules are and you don't change the goalposts, I can succeed. But if you are constantly changing the size of the field, the shape of the ball, if you change everything as we're in process of the game, that feels just horrifically unfair to men. On top of now, I need to make more money.
Massively unfair.
Yeah, it's not the best based on
And
fast praise. Go ahead.
You also end up with this scenario. I hate to call them incels. You have little, small, angry young men who are really getting angry. I know people kind of laugh and joke about them. They've done a lot of angry crimes, is the only word I can, because we're on YouTube.
Naughties, yeah, for sure.
No, naughty crimes, but they're being very marginalized by this society. There's other groups as well you could always think of off our heads.
We were watching Alexander Race when he's talking about the male loneliness epidemic and how there are women out there on TikTok, Instagram, and all these other platforms that literally just shit on them, as opposed to saying, you know what, I'm going to be compassionate and I'm going to make a difference for people who are marginalized and disrespected and are hurting, right? Which is what you would do if you actually had a heart, you know?
Yeah.
Right? But that's not what they're doing. They're changing the rules and then laughing about it, you know? So
I see that with I see an awful lot of young men fall into that trap of idolizing these people on Twitter and Twitch and so on.
Right.
And they're giving up a lot of their hard-earned money to these people who don't particularly have their best interests at heart. It's a shame to watch it as well.
Feel ya. Here we go.
Some, but a lot of people who either live together or single. I mean, the majority of households in Manhattan are single.
There's a graph in an NBC poll that was done recently that broke things down by male and female Harris voters versus male and female Trump voters, left to right. And in the top, and it was very personal choices. You're ranked 1 to 13, listed priorities. The number one priority for male Trump voters was having kids. Now, actually, female Trump voters, that was like number 6.
Right.
Harris voters, it was second to bottom.
Right.
Female.
Well, look, you think about it. You have a woman who, product of academia, definitely a DEI hire, and no.
Are you talking about Harris?
Yeah, and no kids. I mean, so and I think that so that's one America, and it's not insignificant. And then there's the other America where people are moving to places where they can have children, where going to church or synagogue doesn't make you a weirdo, where where the kids get a good education, where you could where it's usually somewhat affordable, And these are two Americas. And so I think what we're going to see in the next few decades, the power of the first America is actually going to be sustained by a very low birth rate, and by this group of women, and obviously somewhat consequently men, who never have children, never get married.
It'll be sustained by that, or it'll die as a
It'll be
result?
sustained for a while,
Okay.
until the areas where people have children overcome them. So, like for instance, if you look at the states where the people have the most kids, they're mostly in the South, in the Great Plains.
That's also where we get the city versus country thing, right? Where the city folk who literally have to be supplied by the country or they don't survive because they're not out there digging the potato out of the ground, right?
Pretty much.
They're not taking the corn off the stalk. They're not getting the snap peas out the ground or the rice out of the water. They're not doing the hard labor. They're not getting their hands dirty.
They're not putting the graft in, as they say.
Mm-hmm. So there's
I think he did raise he is right in a lot of ways. That even if you look at the last couple of years, even as Trump being elected and so on, it's people who are having kids are voting more conservative than liberal.
Yeah, for sure, because they don't feel like their number one concern or number two concern of having children is being addressed, right?
Yeah.
So
not
functionally,
and immigration and so on. There's other
factors
there, but yeah,
for sure. But a lot of it is that society is now forcing it so that you have to make X amount of money to have children, right? For instance, for you to have in the United States a vehicle that can use legal car seats for children, they're more expensive than the ones that don't. So you can get a car that doesn't, but then if you want to have kids now, there's a
what kind of law is that?
It's not. It's you have to have a certain kind of baby seat for a baby.
Right, I understand that, but
to fit that in your vehicle, it's going to be a more expensive vehicle than one that can't fit the baby seat. It's a hidden charge for having children on top of childcare.
I didn't actually know that.
Yeah,
over here it's different. You have a car, you can buy a car, so you can pretty much put it into 99.9% of most vehicles outside of it.
Here you're going to have to spend a pretty penny more, have the appropriate locking mechanisms to lock the chair into the seat, and they have to be done specifically, right? It's very specific, the kind of like hookups and links you have to have in your back seat for kids. And then there's a lot.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. I remember putting in the car seats before for friends of mine, and some of them you definitely need a degree in engineering just to get it to fit.
Pretty much.
Eventually, it does fit. They're universal clips. It comes with a big pack of clips for every kind of vehicle.
Oh God!
You have to figure out which clip goes with what make a car and so on.
My God.
Website, the whole thing. It's a whole thing.
A lot of waste. All right, let's get this going.
That's where people have children, and that's where people get married. I mean, if you go, in the old days when I was growing up, middle class people lived in New York. Middle class families lived in Manhattan. My dentist lived in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Friends of mine lived in Manhattan. And you certainly could be upper middle class with a couple of kids. You could do that.
Yeah.
I think that's becoming harder and harder and harder.
Yeah, we discussed the money thing earlier, but we'll let this guy go.
Yeah.
Harder to do.
Yeah.
And live in Manhattan. The demographics are pretty clear there. So I think, in many ways, New York and to some extent some of the other big cities serve a function as almost like graduate schools for certain careers where it's really good to be there. But long term, I don't think that works. And I think it's a shame. And I think it's unfortunately sparked a cultural divide in the country where people who are married, have kids, maybe own a house, don't live in Manhattan, have a very different worldview than the people who live in Manhattan.
Right, and based on population, it's going to be unsustainable over time. It just is.
It is. And plus it makes people feel more and more isolated, more divided.
Oh, yeah, and New York City, all these big cities, they're like people they're living like animals in zoos. They put themselves in little concrete boxes, and then they wend their way down to the bus. The bus takes them to the job. They go to the job. They're done with the job. They get back on the bus and go back to their little box. right? Seriously, it is like San Francisco, LA, Chicago, not Miami, not so much Miami. We actually saw that David Rubin interview with the mayor of Miami. They're doing great. New York for sure, right? Newark, New Jersey, like all these places, like it's just this giant human zoo. And you notice, like, they're not getting married, they're not making children. So it's individually exhibited humans living alone and desperate and lonely lives in their cells. That's what it is. They're just imprisoned like they're in a zoo.
And it's sad, really, when you see it. I remember a film I watched years ago. There's nothing worse than an amputated spirit.
Fact.
And that's what it seems like.
There's a fact.
And by the way, in the comments, if people can know what movie that comes from, you get bonus points.
Oh, look at Patrick giving out bonus points. Maybe we'll get some merch here soon.
I give me a hint. It's got Al Pacino in it.
Nice. We'll start throwing up some A&P merch and get you America Tricolor flag shirts.
But on that kind of semi-pressing note, I think we'll start wrapping up today's episode. I have to say, really, really, really enjoyable to dig into the root causes of a lot of revolutions around the world.
It makes a lot of sense. He's got a few more points, and they're pretty poignant. It's John Popola with Mr. Kotkin there. You guys can check that out. We'll put the links in there for you. You can watch the whole thing if you want to. So for Patrick McCallum, I am Alex Johansson. Ring the bell, subscribe, like, do all the things that help us beat the algorithm. We are out.